Last night, my daughter-in-law told me, don't touch her furniture. This morning, a blue ox movers truck is parked outside. The driver just called, asking if I want them to take the antique Louis XV cabinet first, or the little secret I planted inside it. My son thinks I'm weak. My daughter-in-law thinks I'm old and legally ignorant. They are both very wrong. My name is Evelyn Carver. I am 58 years old, and I am a widow. This is my home, here in Loveland, Colorado. But tonight it is filled with the sound of other people's laughter. It was Tuesday, and my son, Luke, and his wife, Sloane Mercer, were hosting what they called a housewarming. An interesting choice of words, given the house has been warmed by my family for 2 decades. Sloane stood at the head of my dining table, raising a crystal flute. The light caught the facets, but her eyes were flat, sharp chips of ice. "A toast," she announced. The few guests they had invited, people I did not recognize, mostly her influencer friends, quieted down. "To new beginnings," she said, her gaze sliding past Luke and locking directly onto me. "And to clarity. What's mine is mine." She smiled, a thin, stretched gesture. "And mother," she added, the title sounding like an insult. "Just a little house rule, don't touch my furniture?" A ripple of awkwardness went through the room. She was, of course, referring to the collection she had moved in, the expensive, glossy, modern pieces that clashed horribly with the house's foundation, but also, crucially, the priceless antiques that already lived here. My antiques. My late husband's collection. I watched my son, Luke. He gave that weak, forced laugh he has perfected since marrying her. He looked down, studying his plate as if it held the secrets to the universe, rather than the catering Sloane had ordered. Sloane, however, was perfectly composed. She sipped her champagne, her eyes darting around the room. I saw the calculation. She was not just enjoying the party, she was taking inventory. Earlier, I had watched her testing the smart home hub, checking the garage code, fiddling with the new key fob I had reluctantly had made for her. She was measuring the dimensions of her new cage, and she wanted to ensure she held the only key. I said nothing. I did not raise my glass. Instead, my fingers found the worn gold of my wedding band, twisting it on my finger. The familiar pressure brought Graham back to me, just for a second. His voice, steady and certain, from that sterile lawyer's office 4 years ago. "Put everything in the Carver Heritage Trust. Evie, it is the only way to protect the family, to protect Luke from himself, and from anyone who might try to take advantage." He had known, even then. He had known his son's essential weakness. As Sloane moved on to describing the provenance of a hideous chrome armchair, my phone vibrated softly on my lap. A text alert from the bank. "Carver Trust supplemental card. A charge of $18,900 has been approved at Prairie Hearth Interiors." Prairie Hearth, the boutique where Sloane consulted. $18,900. On my card. The card I gave her only for household necessities and emergencies. I kept my expression neutral. I looked at Sloane, now laughing loudly at something one of her friends whispered. She was flushed with victory, drunk on the power she thought she had just secured. Another vibration. Not a text, but a notification from my own security system. Not the one Sloane had access to, but the discreet perimeter cameras I had installed last month. A motion alert from the driveway sensor. triggered in the early hours of the morning, before dawn. I tapped the alert. The footage was grainy, time-stamped 3:14 a.m., a dark sedan I did not recognize, a figure getting out Sloane, wrapped in her expensive coat. She was handing a clipboard to a man who had parked a small, unmarked box truck just out of the streetlight's glare. The camera's microphone was sensitive. I zoomed in on the audio feed. "Just the listed items," the man was saying. 8 a.m. sharp. Mercer move. No. Sloane's voice, sharp and low. "The name is Mercer. Make sure the truck is unmarked when you arrive. I want it done before she even wakes up." A secret moving contract. Under her name. Scheduled for the morning. My blood did not boil. It turned cold. It turned solid. This was not an impulse. This was a planned extraction. She was not just spending my money. She was planning to empty my home, her home, as she saw it of Graham's legacy. I did not explode. I did not confront her. I did not throw my wine in her perfectly contoured face, though God knows I wanted to. Instead, I discreetly unlocked my phone again, closing the security feed. I navigated past the photos of my granddaughter, past my emails, and opened the secure folder marked Legal. I did not need to read the documents. I knew them by heart. But I wanted to see them. I wanted to feel the certainty of the digital ink. First, the deed to the house on Riverside Lane. Owner, the Carver Heritage Trust. Second, the trust agreement. Trustee Evelyn Carver. Third, the fixtures and furnishings addendum. A detailed, itemized list of every significant piece Graham and I had ever collected. The clause, highlighted by my lawyer Marla, was crystal clear. All items listed herein are the indivisible property of the trust and may not be moved, sold, loaned, or encumbered without the express written consent of the trustee. Sloane thought I was a grieving, technologically illiterate old woman. She forgot I ran the finances for Graham's engineering firm for 25 years. I looked up. Sloane was watching me. She smiled again. That same thin, triumphant smirk. She thought I was texting a friend, beaten. I smiled back. My thumb moved to my smart home dashboard, not the one she used, my master control panel. I scrolled to my customized scenarios. I bypassed good night and vacation. I pressed the routine I had created last week, the one I had prayed I would not have to use. The routine was labeled Move Day, the action executed instantly. My personal calendar pinged. A new event, locked and hidden from the shared family calendar, appeared for the next morning, 8:00 a.m., Blue Ox Movers. She had booked her secret, unmarked truck for 8, but my fully insured, bonded, and legally contracted movers. Booked by me, the trustee would be here at 7:55. I took a slow sip of my water. Sloane looked away, satisfied she had put me in her place. "You told me not to touch your furniture." "Sloane, I will not touch a single thing. I will just sign the transfer manifest. Graham passed away 4 years ago. It felt like yesterday, and it felt like a century. His death was not just an emotional event. It was a complex legal restructuring. Graham was a brilliant engineer, but he was also a pragmatist. He knew our son. He saw the world clearly. The Carver Heritage Trust was his final design, his last bulwark. The house on Riverside Lane, the place we built together, was immediately transferred into the trust's name. I was not just the widow living in it. I was the trustee, the fiduciary, the guardian. Then came Sloane. Luke lost his job at North Spur Labs during the tech downturn. He was adrift, and Sloane became his anchor. She presented herself as an interior design expert, a social media personality with a curated feed of beautiful rooms. I noticed, even before they were married, how the antiques in her photos seemed to change constantly. A new console here, a different settee there. She called it refreshing the space. I called it inventory turnover. When they married, and Luke admitted he could not afford a place of their own, I offered them the main floor of this house. It was not a casual invitation. It was a formal use agreement drafted by my lawyer, Marla Keating. It lasted 12 months. Luke signed it, barely reading. Sloane watched. The terms were precise, sharp as a surgeon's blade. All permanent fixtures and furnishings, as itemized in Appendix A, remain the exclusive and indivisible property of the Carver Heritage Trust. My objective was never about money. It was about memory. Graham's passion was not in stocks. It was in the tangible. He curated the Carver collection, the heavy, hand-carved mahogany cabinet, the matching partner's desk, the deep leather armchairs where he read to Luke as a child, and, locked in the study, his archive of regional mountain art. Sloane saw these things not as a legacy, but as props. The borrowing started subtly, about 3 months ago. The 19th century Windsor chair from the foyer vanished. "Oh, I took it for restoration," Sloane chirped when I asked. The spindle was cracked. A week later, the matching pair of Art Deco lamps from the study. The wiring was frayed. "Mother? It was a fire hazard. I'm having them rewired." I asked for the restoration receipts. I asked for the electrician's invoice. "Oh, they are digital. I will forward them," she always said, waving her phone. They never arrived. I spoke to Marla Keating, the trust's lawyer. Marla is not a sentimental woman. She deals in facts. "Evelyn," she told me over coffee 2 months back. I ran a search. Sloane Mercer just registered an LLC, Mercer Staging and Company. It is a home staging business. It all clicked. She was not redecorating. She was sourcing. My home was her showroom, her free warehouse. I played the part she assigned me, the naive, grieving widow, too technologically inept to understand her fast-paced world. While she was busy consulting at Prairie Hearth Interiors, the store that conveniently billed my supplemental card, I was busy upgrading. She thought the house was smart because she could control the lights with her voice. I made it intelligent. I waited until she and Luke were out. I carefully opened the seam on the large, tufted sofa she seemed so fond of. I slipped a new Apple AirTag deep into the horsehair stuffing and stitched it closed. For the heavier, more valuable pieces, the mahogany cabinet, the bar, I used something better. RFID microchips, the size of a grain of rice, drilled discreetly into the unfinished wood underneath, sealed with matching wax, invisible, permanent. I reread the trust agreement. Graham, or perhaps the lawyers he hired, had been thorough. There was an emergency provision. The trustee held the right of immediate reclamation if any asset of the trust was commercially displayed, leased, transferred, or otherwise moved from the primary residence without explicit, written permission. Sloane's restorations were a test. Her secret moving van, confirmed by my cameras, was the trigger. That alert from Prairie Hearth Interiors for $18,900 was just spite. The final twist of the knife before she looted the house. She was charging me for the privilege of being robbed. I did not cancel the charge. I approved it. I let the payment go through. Instead, I opened my files. I had already done the work. I had photographs of every single item listed in Appendix A. I had close-ups of wood grain, of signature marks, of the specific wear on the leather. I cross-referenced them with the newly installed RFID serial numbers. I finalized the booking with Blue Ox movers. They were not just any movers, they were bonded art handlers. I booked them under my authority as trustee, citing the emergency reclamation clause. I prepared the inventory manifests for them. They were not coming to move furniture. They were coming to secure assets. I did not sleep. After the party guests left and the silence of the house settled, I moved. I walked through the main floor with a roll of small, numbered inventory tags. I placed one on the leg of the mahogany desk, another on the underside of a velvet armchair, another on the base of Graham's favourite lamp. They were discreet, but they were visible. I was finishing my coffee, the first light just filtering into the kitchen, when I heard a sharp, disgusted sound. "What is this?" Sloane was standing in the living room in her silk robe, holding one of the tags she had ripped off a chair leg. She held it between her thumb and forefinger as if it were a dead insect. "You're putting stickers on my things." "They are not stickers," I said, not looking up from my coffee. "They are inventory labels." "Inventory?" She laughed, a sharp, brittle sound. "For what this sentimental junk?" I held my phone under the counter, my thumb hovering. I opened the monitoring app Marla had installed for me. It had flagged a new post in a private group chat, Mercer staging VIP clients. My stomach tightened. There they were. Photos she must have taken during the party last night. My living room. My furniture. Graham's collection. And underneath, a caption, "Exclusive carver pieces available for weekly rental. DM for rates, these will go fast." Before I could respond, Luke stumbled in, rubbing his eyes. "Sloane, Mom. What's going on? It's barely 7? Your mother is tagging the furniture?" Sloane snapped, throwing the label on the counter. "She's trying to control me." Luke looked at me, his face etched with that familiar, weary frustration. "Mom, come on. We talked about this. Sloane needs this. She needs to build her business, to get some capital flowing." I finally looked up, meeting his eyes. "By renting out property that doesn't belong to her, by renting out the trust's assets." Luke winced. He hated the word trust. "It's not renting," Sloane interjected, stepping between us. "It's staging. It's how the business works. And besides, I'm already investing in this house." She strode to the kitchen island and pulled a piece of paper from her leather portfolio. It was the invoice from last night. Prairie Hearth Interiors. $18,900. "I bought us a new sofa," she announced, sliding the invoice toward Luke. "On your mother's card, since she's so concerned about the assets." She had highlighted the signature at the bottom of the purchase order. A messy, looping E carver. I almost smiled. "That's a very generous forgery. Sloane?" She stiffened. "What did you say?" "I said," I replied, leaning in, "that my E doesn't connect to my C. It never has." Luke looked confused, glancing between the invoice and my face. "What does that mean?" "It means," Sloane said, her voice rising, "that your mother is having a paranoid episode. She's delusional." The doorbell rang. Sloane's expression shifted instantly from anger to smug confidence. "That will be my appraiser." She walked past me to answer the door. A man in a sharp suit stood on the porch, holding a tablet. "Mr. Davies," Sloane said brightly. "From Hearth and Peak Realty, please. Come in. I'm having the collection valued for insurance." The man, Davies, looked at me uncertainly. "Ma'am." "Of course," I said, gesturing him inside. "Please, do your work. Sloane, you've been so proactive." Sloane guided him to the mahogany cabinet first. "This is the prize," she said. Davies nodded, impressed, and pulled a small, handheld scanner from his jacket. He was about to scan the barcode Sloane had clearly affixed to the back, but I stepped forward. "You might find this more accurate," I said. I handed him my own tablet, opened to the asset management app. "Just scan the general area. The RFID tags are embedded. It saves you from having to look for labels." Sloane's face went white. Davies, clearly just wanting to do his job, shrugged and aimed his scanner at the cabinet. It beeped. On my tablet. The entry for Carver mahogany cabinet flashed green. He moved to the armchair. Beep. Carver leather armchair left. He moved to the desk. Beep. Carver partner's desk. He then pointed his scanner at the empty space by the window. "Odd," he murmured, tapping his own device. "What is it?" I asked. "I'm just cross-referencing my work order," he said. "The request from Ms. Mercer listed 4 items for valuation in this room: the cabinet, the desk, and a pair of Art Deco lamps." He looked around. "I don't see any lamps." I pointed my tablet at the empty side table. The app flashed red. Item 004 Art Deco lamp. Status offsite. Last ping, Mercer Staging Studio. 43 Bayside Drive. Date 1 month ago. Davies looked from my tablet to Sloane. Sloane was shaking, her face pale with rage. "You!" she screamed at me. "You are harassing me. You put trackers in my home." "My home," I corrected her, my voice perfectly calm. "And my furniture, which you moved, against the terms of the trust agreement, to your commercial studio." "I'm calling the police," she shrieked, fumbling for her phone. "I'm calling them right now." "Good," I said. "Please do. Invite them to witness a lawful asset transfer." Luke, who had been frozen this entire time, finally snapped into action. He grabbed his own phone. "This is insane. I'm not letting you do this." He dialed a number. "Noah. Hey, man. I need that truck. I need it now. I've got to move some stuff before." He stopped. His eyes drifted past me, through the living room window to the street. A large, white truck from Blue Ox Movers was already parked at the curb. It was not 8 o'clock yet, but they were early. And they had my contract, signed by the trustee. Luke lowered his phone. The colour drained from his face as he looked at me. It was the first time I had seen it in years. The seed of doubt. The horrifying realization that he had backed the wrong side. "Mum," he whispered. "What did you do?" The AirTag on the tufted sofa had been stationary for a month at her studio. But the 19th century Windsor chair was different. After Sloane told me it was at restoration, I slipped a tag into the upholstery lining. For 3 weeks, it sat at an address I did not recognize. Then, 2 days before the housewarming, it moved. The signal was strong and clear. Windsor Storage, Unit 27B. I drove there myself. The manager, a man with a tired face and a coffee-stained shirt, blocked the hallway. "Can't let you in, ma'am. Unit's not in your name." "No," I agreed. It is not. But the property inside is. I did not argue. I simply produced the folder Marla had prepared for me. I slid the documents under the glass. The notarized power of attorney for the Carver Heritage Trust, the full trust instrument, and Appendix A, the itemized, photographed, and valued list of assets. I pointed to item 42, Windsor chair, American, circa 1810, appraised value $9,000. My next call is to the police, I said calmly. To report a theft. Your facility will be named as accessory, or you can open Unit 27B, and we can confirm the trust's stolen property is inside. His eyes scanned the legal boilerplate, the gold seals. He went to his computer, typed for a moment, and then his shoulders slumped. The unit was rented to Mercer Staging, LLC. He grabbed his keys. This is highly irregular. So is stealing, I said. He cut the lock. The metal door rattled up. The unit was small, but packed. And there it was. The Windsor chair, wrapped in plastic, but unmistakable. A large label was taped to the wrapping. My blood ran cold. It was not a storage label. It was a sales tag. Fort Collins Design Expo, Weekend Show, Lot 12. Seller Mercer Staging. Price $12,500. She was not just staging it. She was selling it. I stepped into the unit. There, in the corner, were the Art Deco lamps, also tagged. I pulled out my phone. I took photos. I took video, panning slowly from the unit number to the chair, to the tag, to the lamps. I documented everything. I sent the files to Marla Keating before I even left the storage facility. Her reply was immediate. A phone call. She's liquidating. Evelyn, this is it. What do we do? I'm filing for an emergency TRO right now. Marla's voice was sharp. All business. A temporary restraining order enjoining her, Mercer Staging, or any agent from moving, selling, or touching any asset in Appendix A. And I'm prepping a writ of replevin as backup. We're getting it all back. When I got home, I did not stop. The sales tag sparked a new thought. The faked invoices. I opened the trust's online bank portal. I found the 2 invoices Sloane had submitted for restoration weeks ago. The ones I had paid, suspecting they were false. I looked at the routing number for the receiving account. Mercer Design, LLC. I opened the state's business registry. Mercer Staging and Company, the LLC Marla found, was registered 3 months ago, but Mercer Design, LLC was registered over a year ago. 2 different entities, 2 different tax IDs. She was splitting the money, creating a deliberately confusing paper trail. One LLC for the staging business, another, older one to receive fraudulent payments. This was not just panicked borrowing. This was a structured, premeditated con. I marked both LLCs for Marla. The last piece of evidence was the easiest to find. It was the one she gave me herself. I opened Instagram. I went to Sloane's professional page, the one with thousands of followers. And there it was. A post from last night, during her housewarming party. It was a video, a sweeping, glamorous pan of my living room, set to some awful, pulsing music. The caption was the final nail. A little sneak peek of my biggest project yet, the Carver collection is finally getting a new stage. So honored to be the exclusive curator for these historic pieces. Big things coming. Mercer Staging, Carver Collection, Colorado Design. She had publicly admitted it. She had confirmed the origin of the assets and her commercial intent in writing for the entire world to see. I smiled. I took a screenshot. I saved the video. I sent it to Marla. Sloane had not just handed me a knife. She had handed me the signed, notarized confession and told me exactly where to cut. I did not wait for the confrontation at the house to escalate. While Luke and Sloane were staring, dumbfounded, at the Blue Ox truck parked at the curb, the one I had told to wait, I walked to my car. I sent Luke a single text message. "Meet me at the Maple Finch Bakery in 10 minutes. We need to talk. Just us." It was the place Graham used to take him every Saturday morning. It was our neutral ground, a place of truce, filled with the smell of cinnamon and coffee. It was a place Sloane, with her high-gloss aesthetic, despised. He arrived looking wrecked, his hair a mess, his face pale and angry. He slid into the booth opposite me. "What the hell? Mom, movers. You're terrorizing Sloane. She's hysterical." I did not respond immediately. I waited until the waitress poured his coffee, the way he always took it. Black. "Do you remember?" I asked, my voice very quiet. "Your junior year of college. That spring semester you spent in Boulder. You called me crying because you had maxed out 3 credit cards. It was almost $20,000. Luke's eyes snapped up to meet mine. "What does that have to do with anything? You were too ashamed to tell your father." I continued, as if he had not spoken. "I told him. He was furious, not about the money." "Luke. He was furious that you were drowning in debt and were too afraid to ask him for help. He drove to Boulder, paid off every card, and took you to dinner. He told you. A man pays his own debts, but a family protects its own foundation. He saved you from financial ruin." I slid a thin, 2-page document across the table. It was not the entire trust. It was the use agreement, the one he had signed 12 months ago. "This is your foundation," I said. I tapped my finger on Section 3. The no commercialization clause. The one that explicitly forbids leasing, renting, or selling any asset belonging to the trust. "She's just staging," he stammered, the practiced excuse sounding hollow even to him. "It's just, she's moving things around. This house, Luke," I said, cutting him off, "is not yours. It belongs to the trust. You are a beneficiary of its use, not a co-owner. Sloane has no legal rights here. None. She is a guest who is actively violating a binding legal agreement. Your father protected you from a $20,000 mistake. I am protecting you from a $500,000 fraud." He went white. It was the word. Fraud. That did it. She promised. He whispered. The anger completely gone, replaced by a pathetic, childish panic. She promised she would put everything back, just like new. She said it was the only way to get her business capital, that it was all just for show. I could have yelled. I could have shamed him for his stupidity. But that was Graham's way, not mine. My way is quieter. "She lied to you," I said, my voice softening. I took out my phone. I did not show him legal text. I showed him proof. "This," I said, opening the first photo, "is the Windsor chair. The one she said was at restoration." I showed him the picture I took in the storage unit. I zoomed in on the sales tag. "She is selling it at the Fort Collins Design Expo this weekend. The price is $12,500. He shook his head, speechless. No, she wouldn't. "This," I swiped to the next image, "is the appraiser's work order. She hired him to value the entire collection. The one she told you was just for insurance." This, I swiped again, is the proof of her dual LLCs, one to stage, one to receive the fraudulent restoration payments you've been approving from the trust account. He stared at the screen, his world visibly collapsing. He was not evil. He was just weak, and he had tied himself to a shark. I put the phone down. I am not doing this to hurt you. I am doing it to honor your father. I am giving you the same choice he did. You can stand with me, your mother, and protect the legacy your father built for you. Or you can stand with a woman who is committing commercial fraud and using your name to do it. He looked broken. He picked up his own phone, his hand trembling. I have to ask her. Please do, I said. Put it on speaker. He dialed. Sloane answered on the first ring, her voice a hysterical shriek. Luke, where are you? Your mother's movers are here. The Blue Ox ones, they have a list. What is happening? Sloane. Luke's voice was hoarse. The Fort Collins Design Expo. What is it? There was a sudden, cold silence on the other end. What? What are you talking about? She said, her voice instantly dropping from panic to a guarded whisper. The Windsor chair. Mum knows. Sloane. She knows you're selling it. She's lying, Sloane screamed, but it was too loud, too fast. It's not a sale. It's a booth rental. It's how you get investors. The contract is just a formality. I had to put a value on it. That's all. By trying to deny it, she had just confirmed the contract's existence. Luke looked at me, his eyes dead. He knew. Sloane, he said. What about the other truck, the one you hired? It's on its way, she hissed. It's supposed to be here at 8, Luke. I have to get that cabinet to the expo tonight or I lose the entire deposit. That's my money. He hung up. He did not say anything. He just stared into his black coffee. I paid the bill and stood up, pulling on my coat. Tomorrow morning, I said, my voice clear and final. At 8 o'clock, the Blue Ox movers will arrive. They are operating under my full authority as trustee. They will reclaim every item listed in Appendix A. I paused at the end of the booth. If you are home, Luke, you will see the truth of what you married. I truly hope you are. I left him alone in the bakery, surrounded by the ghosts of his father. The night before move day was not for sleeping, it was for synchronization. At 9:15, my phone lit up. An email from Marla Keating. The subject was simple, TRO granted. A Larimer County judge, reviewing the evidence from the storage unit and the Instagram post, had signed the emergency temporary restraining order. Sloane Mercer, and any agent acting on her behalf, was now legally restrained from touching, moving, selling, or encumbering any asset listed in Appendix A. Marla's follow-up text confirmed the next step. Larimer County Sheriff's Office is looped in. They will dispatch a deputy for civil standby at 8 o'clock a.m. sharp. They won't take sides, but they will prevent a breach of the peace and enforce the order. That was all I needed. I did not wait until morning to secure the stolen property, under the full authority of the trust. I called a 24-hour locksmith. I met him at Windsor Storage at 11 o'clock. I presented my notarized trustee papers and a copy of the new TRO. He did not ask questions. He cut Sloane's lock. I had him install a new, high-security cylinder. I paid him in cash. The entire exchange was recorded on a small body cam I had purchased that afternoon. The Windsor chair and the Art Deco lamps were secure. Next, the logistics. I finalized the packet for the Blue Ox movers. It was not a simple work order. It was a legal brief. It contained the finalized inventory, complete with color photographs, the corresponding RFID serial numbers, and the insured replacement value for every single piece. They were not just movers. They were technicians executing an asset reclamation. Then, I dealt with the court of public opinion, Sloane's home turf. I texted my neighbor, Greta. Greta lives 3 doors down and runs the Loveland local news blog. She fancies herself an investigative journalist and has a rabid following for her Neighborhood Watch live streams. I kept the text simple. Greta, something very strange is happening at my house tomorrow morning. Movers, lawyers. I'm a little frightened. I think my daughter-in-law might be trying to, well, I'd feel safer if you happened to be on your morning walk around 8 o'clock, just to have an extra set of eyes. Greta, smelling drama, promised she would absolutely be covering the neighborhood beat. I armed my own defenses. I clipped the small body cam to the lapel of the blazer I planned to wear. I activated the move day routine I had programmed, which meant every camera in the house, the living room, the foyer, the kitchen, was now recording high-definition video and audio, uploading directly to a secure cloud server that Marla had access to. I needed to prove Sloane's intent if she fought. I took a fresh copy of Appendix A, the inventory list. I lightly, carefully dusted the edges of the paper with a specialized UV-reactive fingerprint powder, invisible to the naked eye. I left it on the kitchen counter, right where she always left her keys. I knew Sloane. I knew her explosive, childish temper. She would not be able to resist destroying it. When she did, she would be marking herself. I went downstairs to the basement. Behind a steel-reinforced door that looked like a simple utility closet was Graham's climate-controlled archive. He called it the Carver Museum Room. It was empty, perfectly lit, waiting. I set the humidity controls and left the lights on. The assets were not just being moved, they were coming home. The final move was Marla's. At 7 o'clock a.m., just as the sun was rising, she electronically served the Fort Collins Design Expo organizers with the TRO and a formal cease and desist letter. It cited the fraudulent representation of ownership for the items in the Mercer staging booth. The organizers, facing immediate legal liability for selling stolen goods, terminated Sloane's contract and pulled her booth from the floor plan before the doors even opened. By the time I heard the first rumble of the blue ox truck turning onto my street, every commercial escape route Sloane had was sealed. Every legal document was in place. Every camera was rolling. The board was set. At 7:55 in the morning, the heavy rumble of the blue ox truck announced its arrival. The hiss of the air brakes cut through the quiet street. I was at the door, the small camera on my blazer recording, as the crew foreman, clipboard in hand, started up the walk. He never made it to the bell. The door was yanked open, and Sloane launched herself onto the porch. She was still in her silk robe, her hair wild, her face a mask of disbelief and fury. "Get off my property," she screamed at the foreman. "No one touches my furniture. I have my own movers coming. Go away." The foreman, a broad man who looked like he had seen everything, simply stopped and looked past her to me, standing in the foyer. "Ma'am, I have a signed work order for an Evelyn Carver. Asset reclamation." "Please come in, gentlemen," I said, my voice calm. I stepped past Sloane, who was sputtering, and walked to the dining room table. I ignored her and began to lay out the documents, one by one. The signed temporary restraining order, still fresh from the judge, the bound copy of the Carver Heritage Trust instrument. What? What is this? Sloane stammered, following me inside. You can't just… Luke, your mother has gone insane. I did not look at her. I turned the page of the trust agreement to the section Marla had tabbed. This, I said, my voice clear and amplified by the body cam, is the governing document for this house and every item in it. And this, I pointed to the precise clause, is the court order enforcing it. It states that the trustee that's me may reclaim, remove, and secure all trust assets if they are at risk, which they are. You are stealing from me, she shrieked, finally pulling out her phone. I am calling 911. I'm telling them you broke in. You're assaulting me. That's an excellent idea. Sloane, I said, smiling faintly. I already called them. Right on cue. A Larimer County Sheriff's cruiser pulled into the driveway, blocking any escape. A deputy stepped out, his hand resting near his sidearm. Sloane ran toward him. Officer. Thank God. This woman, my mother-in-law, she's having a breakdown. She's hired these men to rob me. The deputy, Hayes, held up a hand. Ma'am, please lower your voice. We received a call for a civil standby, and then a second call for a robbery in progress. Let's figure out what's happening. I walked forward and handed him my own copy of the TRO and my driver's license. Evelyn Carver, I am the trustee of this property. I am executing a court-ordered asset reclamation, as per this order signed by Judge Mathis. My legal counsel, Marla Keating, has already been in contact with your office. Deputy Hayes took the papers. His eyes scanned the first page, noting the names. He noted the signature. He looked at Sloane, then back at the document. Ma'am, he said to her, this appears to be a valid court order. I am not here to interpret it, but I am here to keep the peace. You cannot interfere with this process. You can't be serious. They may proceed, he said to me. I nodded to the Blue Ox foreman. Please begin. The inventory list is on the clipboard. The team moved. They were professionals. They entered the living room, and the foreman aimed his inventory scanner at the large mahogany cabinet. A loud, sharp beep echoed in the silent room. Item 1, Carver cabinet, confirmed, he called out. They began to wrap it in protective blankets. Beep, the leather armchair. Beep, the partner's desk. Luke appeared at the top of the stairs. He was dressed, but his face was ashen. He had stayed. He watched the scene, paralyzed. As the movers carefully tipped the heavy cabinet backward onto a dolly, the unfinished wood of the base was exposed. And there, stuck carelessly to the bottom, was a white Mercer staging sales tag. Luke's eyes locked onto it. I saw his lips move, silently reading the words. Lot 12. He looked across the room at me, his expression hollow. The last shred of his denial disintegrated. Sloane saw him looking. She saw his face. That was what broke her. Her eyes darted around, looking for a weapon, for anything. They landed on the Appendix A I had left on the kitchen counter. This is your fault, she screamed, lunging for the papers. This stupid list, it's all just sentimental junk. She grabbed the pages and tore them in half, then again, crumpling them in her fists. Ma'am, do not destroy that, the deputy ordered, stepping forward. But the trap was already sprung. Deputy, I said, please document her destruction of legal evidence. And please, take a close look at her hands. Sloane looked down. Her palms and fingers were coated in the fine, dark, invisible to the eye powder. The deputy, now seeing this was far from a simple dispute, took out his own phone and began photographing her stained hands and the crumpled, ruined documents. The movers continued, heading for the master bedroom. "Get out of my room!" Sloane shrieked. "They are retrieving items from the list." "Ma'am," Hayes said, following them. One of the movers bent down to check under the bed. "Ma'am, I need to move this box to get to the rug on the list." He slid out a long, flat, plastic storage container. Sloane went utterly still. "That's private. That's just files." The lid was unlatched. As the mover pulled it, the box tipped, and the lid slid off. Inside, in plain view, was a stack of paper, the fake, forged Carver invoices from Prairie Hearth, and resting right on top of them, catching the light, was a twisted piece of gold. It was my grandmother's engagement ring, the one that had vanished from my jewelry box 2 weeks ago, the one Sloane had helped me look for. The diamond was gone, the empty prongs bent and twisted. Sloane stared at it, speechless. She was cornered, and at that precise moment, a new voice piped up from the open doorway. "Oh my goodness. Folks, I'm live here on Riverside Lane, and you will not believe what is happening. It's a full-on police action." It was Greta, my neighbor, phone held high, her neighborhood watch livestream already active. Just as Greta's livestream commentary reached a fever pitch, a calm, sharp presence cut through the chaos. Marla Keating walked through the open front door, carrying a slim leather briefcase. She nodded to Deputy Hayes, then to me. "Marla Keating, counsel for the Carver Heritage Trust," she announced to the room. She looked directly at Sloane, who was now backed against the wall, her face a blotchy red. "Officer," Marla said to Hayes, "my client has already provided the TRO. I would like to add this to your documentation." She produced a single, laminated sheet. "This is a preliminary signature analysis comparing the forged Carver on the Prairie Hearth invoices." She pointed to the box on the floor with Mrs. Carver's actual signature from the trust documents. "As you can see, the looping, the pressure, the connection of the E, they are definitively not a match. This is forgery." Deputy Hayes took the document, his expression hardening. This had escalated far beyond a civil standby. He looked at the box of evidence. "Given this, and the—" He gestured to my grandmother's ring. "I am going to need to secure these items." He began to look around the room, his eyes landing on Sloane's desk in the corner. "Ma'am, is that your business equipment?" He walked over and picked up a small label printer. Next to it was a corporate seal for Mercer Staging LLC and, lying open, a leather-bound notebook. He flipped a page. "What is this Carver collection rotation schedule?" Sloane finally seemed to understand she was no longer in a family argument. "You can't touch that. That's private. I'm calling my lawyer." A slick man in an expensive suit I did not recognize arrived 20 minutes later. "James Burke, from Burke and Petition," he said, handing a card to Marla, pointedly ignoring me. "My client, Sloane Mercer, is being harassed in her own home. We demand you cease this illegal seizure of marital assets at once." Marla did not flinch. She did not even blink. "Mr. Burke, you are misinformed. There are no marital assets in this room. My client and Mr. Carver live here. The furniture is part of the marital estate." "No," Marla said, her voice like ice. The Carver Heritage Trust was formed in 1998, 4 years before the deceased's passing, and a full 6 years before your client even met Mr. Carver. This house, and every item listed on the reclamation order, belongs to the trust. Mr. Luke Carver is a beneficiary of use, not an owner. Your client, she said, finally looking at Sloane, has zero legal stake. She is a guest. Burke, realizing he was on the wrong footing, started to shuffle his papers. This is a simple misunderstanding over a use agreement. It was, Marla agreed, until your client breached that agreement. Section 4, paragraph B. Any attempt to commercialize, lease, sell, or transfer assets, which she has done, constitutes an incurable breach. This breach gives the trustee, my client, the right of immediate termination of the use agreement and allows the trust to sue for full damages. At the word sue, Luke, who had been standing silent on the stairs, finally moved. He walked down, his steps heavy. He looked at Sloane's lawyer, then at his wife, then at me. His voice was shaking, but it was clear. I didn't know, he said to Marla. I didn't know about the sales booth at the expo. She told me it was just for show. He turned to me, his eyes filled with a shame I had not seen in years. Mum, I'll sign a witness statement. I'll tell them everything I know. That was the moment Sloane's entire defense collapsed. Burke held up his hands, attempting a placating smile. Now, let's all calm down. This is clearly just a misunderstanding. A disagreement over definitions. Staging versus commercial use. My client was simply trying to add value to the... Marla did not let him finish. She reached into her briefcase and pulled out a small, black USB drive. She placed it on the now empty dining table with a sharp click. On this drive, Marla said, her voice resonating in the quiet room, you will find the high-resolution photographs from the Windsor storage unit. You will find the sales tag for the Fort Collins Design Expo. You will find the bank records for the 2 separate, fraudulent LLCs. And you will find the direct messages from your client's Instagram account, negotiating weekly rental rates for the Carver collection. There is no misunderstanding. Mr. Burke. There is only evidence. Sloane saw it all. Luke's betrayal, the lawyer's sudden pallor, the deputy taking notes. Greta's camera still lived from the porch. I had to, she screamed, the words tearing out of her. I just borrowed it. It was just temporary, to get the capital flowing. She pointed at Luke. He couldn't give it to me. I was going to put it all back. Deputy Hayes stopped writing and looked up slowly. Ma'am, are you stating that you intentionally transferred these assets from this property for commercial gain? She had done it. A public, verbal confession of fraudulent conversion. Mr. Burke closed his briefcase. My client will be making no further statements. The Blue Ox foreman appeared in the doorway. That's the last of it. Mrs. Carver. All items on the manifest are accounted for and loaded. The front door, which had been open this whole time, now showed only an empty curb. The loud, final slam of the truck's heavy roll-down door echoed from the street. It was a sound of absolute finality. I looked around the house. The spaces where Graham's life had been were now just vacant. Cold air. The living room was an echo. The dining room was a void. It was done. The echo from the departed truck left a vacuum. The house felt huge and cold. Greta was still filming from the porch, her phone a small, dark eye capturing everything. Deputy Hayes stood by the door, his notebook still open. Marla closed her briefcase. She did not sit. She addressed James Burke, Sloane's lawyer, though her words were aimed at Sloane. Mr. Burke, your client now has two distinct paths forward. We are prepared to offer a civil settlement to be concluded today, or we will pursue criminal charges. Burke scoffed, but it was weak. Criminal charges. That's an absurd overreach. Is it? Marla countered, her voice clipping the air. Let's list them. 1 grand theft for the removal of the Windsor chair and Art Deco lamps, valued well over the statutory limit. 2 commercial fraud for the use of trust assets to secure a commercial booth at the expo. 3 wire fraud for the creation of the dual LLCs to receive fraudulent payments. 4 forgery for the signature on the $18,900 invoice. And 5. Marla paused, looking at the box on the floor. Theft and destruction of private property for the heirloom ring. I am quite confident the district attorney will be very interested. Sloane, who had been vibrating with silent rage, finally snapped. Fine. Take it all. But the wicker set on the patio is mine. I bought that with my own money. It was a small, white wicker set she had moved in last month. A housewarming gift, she had called it. I did not say a word. I just unlocked my phone, opened the Asset app, and pointed it at the patio door. The app pinged. Weak, but clear. That's incorrect. Sloane? I said. That set was in the Carver Museum room for 10 years. It was my sunroom furniture before you arrived. The app screen showed it clearly. Item, Urwafantu, white wicker set, 4 PC, status on site. Burke looked at his client. She was lying about patio furniture. She had lost all credibility. Luke, who had been silent this whole time, finally spoke. His voice was raw. Sloane, get your things. What? She whispered, turning to him. Get your clothes. Get your makeup. Get whatever you actually paid for. And get out of my mother's house. Luke, she began, her voice shifting to a desperate, wheedling tone. Baby, they're manipulating you. She's... Get out, he roared. A sound of such pain and fury it startled even me. I stepped between them. I would not allow emotion to cloud the legal proceeding. Mr. Burke, I said, handing him a new document Marla had prepared. This is a simple departure agreement. Your client will vacate the premises within 48 hours. She will take only her personal clothing and effects. She will not be permitted re-entry. As Burke read the document, Sloane's phone buzzed violently on the counter. She snatched it up. Her face, already pale, turned the color of ash. She read the text message aloud, her voice a dead monotone. Fort Collins Design Expo. Your contract is terminated for fraudulent representation. Your $12,500 deposit is non-refundable and will be held against potential damages. Marla added. That's another count of fraud. Mr. Burke. Deceiving the event organizers with assets you did not own. Sloane's lawyer put his hand on her arm. He leaned in and whispered, his voice urgent and low. But I heard him. Sloane, you have no move. He nodded at Luke, is a hostile witness. She has you on forgery. You just confessed to theft in front of a police officer. You will sign the civil agreement. You will sign it now, or you will leave here in handcuffs. What agreement? Sloane whispered. Marla slid the final document across the table. It was the settlement. You have 2 options. Sloane, Marla said. Option A. We hand this entire file to the DA and you face criminal prosecution. Option B. You sign this? This document is a full and formal confession. You will admit, in writing, to the unauthorized commercial transfer of all trust property. You will accept a 5-year ban, barring you from owning or operating any staging or interior design business in the state of Colorado. And, Marla tapped the final clause, you will pay a penalty. I have no money, Sloane stammered. The deposit is gone. We know how much you were charging, I said, speaking for the first time. I handed her the printout from her VIP clients chat group. Here are your own rental rates. The penalty will be double the weekly rate for every item. For every week it was missing or listed. You can pay it in installments. Burke pointed at the signature line. Sign it, Sloane. Her hand was shaking so violently she could barely hold the pen. She scrawled her name, a jagged, angry mark. One last thing, I said. Marla slid a final, blank piece of stationery and an envelope across the table. What is this? Sloane spat. That, I said, is your handwritten apology. You will write it to the Carver Heritage Trust Board, and you will write a second one to the neighbours of this community, the ones you tried to defraud. You will apologize for your behaviour. Greta. I called to the porch. Make sure you get this. It was the final turn of the screw. Not just financial ruin, but public humiliation. Sloane stared at me. Her eyes were no longer panicked. They were pure, black, distilled hatred. She picked up the pen and wrote. It took only a minute. She shoved the letters into the envelopes and threw them on the table. She stood up, grabbing her keys. As she passed me, she leaned in, her voice a low hiss. You will regret this. I did not raise my voice. I did not move. No, Sloane, I said. I won't. Sloane had 48 hours. She spent the night in the house, in a guest room, while Luke slept on the sofa. The silence in the house was heavy, brittle. At exactly 7:59 the next morning, two things happened simultaneously, a perfectly timed legal ballet. First, the Blue Ox Movers truck returned. It parked in the driveway, not to take anything else away, but to bring Graham's collection to its final, secure destination. Second, a smaller, unmarked white box truck turned the corner. It stopped, idling. As the driver looked at the Blue Ox truck with confusion, this was the truck Sloane had hired, the one she had ordered for her secret move. They were 24 hours late, arriving to recover assets before an inventory. Two men in Mercer Staging t-shirts got out, clipboards in hand. They saw me, Marla, and Deputy Hayes, who had returned, as promised, to oversee the final transfer. We're here for a pickup, the driver said, looking at his clipboard. Mercer, lot of antiques. Marla stepped forward before I had to. You are too late, gentlemen, and you are on private property. This, she handed him a new document, is a finalized writ of replevin, signed by a judge at 8:01 this morning. It authorizes the immediate transfer of all assets listed into the Carver Museum room. You need to leave the premises. As the Mercer movers began to argue, the big roll door of the Blue Ox truck slid open. Inside, perfectly wrapped and secure, was Graham's legacy. Sloane and Luke were standing in the doorway, watching. Now, Marla said, her voice projecting into the foyer. The final matter, the Louis XV cabinet. The Blue Ox team carefully wheeled the massive, beautiful piece into the foyer. Marla approached it, not with a key, but with a specific knowledge of its design. She pressed a piece of hidden moulding, and a thin, wooden panel popped open at the base. It was a false bottom, one even I had never known existed. Inside was a single, oilcloth-bound file. Graham's handwriting was on the cover. Luke stepped forward. "What is that?" "This," Marla said, "is your father's conditional donation addendum. He stipulated in this document that the Carver collection was to be used and enjoyed on the main floor, unless—" She flipped the page. "Unless a commercial breach occurred, if any attempt at sale, unauthorized commercial lease, or fraudulent representation was proven, two things would happen immediately. 1. The entire collection was to be removed from the main floor permanently and transferred to the secured Carver Museum room. 2. The use agreement for the beneficiary would be terminated, and the house itself would revert to the sole, direct control of the trustee." Marla looked at Sloane, then at Luke. "Therefore, the use agreement is terminated. Ms. Mercer, your stipulation agreement is active. You have 24 hours to vacate." Luke just nodded. He looked resigned. "I understand." The Blue Ox team began the final transfer. They wheeled the pieces from the truck, through the foyer, and down the reinforced hallway to the basement museum room. Beep. The scanner read the RFID on the cabinet. Green. Beep. The Windsor chair. Green. Beep. The Art Deco lamps. Green. One by one, the assets returned. The screen on Marla's tablet tracking the inventory ticked up to 100%. Restored. As the last chair was heading downstairs, Sloane's phone, sitting abandoned on the kitchen counter, began to ring. It buzzed, loud and violent in the empty room. An email alert flashed on the screen, then another. She grabbed it. Her face went slack. "Fort Collins Design Expo," she read, her voice hollow. "Official notice of contract termination, citing public disclosure of fraudulent representation." Another alert. Her bank. "Your accounts are frozen, pending an active fraud investigation." That was the last string. She broke. She lunged, screaming, not at me, but at the Louis XV cabinet as the movers paused with it at the top of the stairs. "That is mine. I bought it. The receipt. The Prairie Hearth receipt. It's mine." She clawed at the blanket, trying to stop them. Deputy Hayes stepped between her and the movers. He did not touch her. He just pointed to the clear evidence bag he was holding, the bag containing the contents from under her bed. "Ma'am," he said, his voice flat and tired. "Are you referring to the forged invoice, the one with your fingerprints in marker dust all over the fake signature?" Sloane froze, all the sound, all the fight, just evacuated her body. She stared at the bag, then at the cabinet. She was silent. She had nothing left. Luke turned his back on her. He looked at me, his eyes clear for the first time in years. There were no tears, no apologies, no attempt to bridge the gap between us. It was just a cold, hard acknowledgement. "Mom," he said, "I'll sign the full declaration. I'm transferring the keys, the smart home codes, everything. Back to you as trustee. Today." I just nodded. This was not a moment for an embrace. It was a moment for boundaries, drawn clearly and finally. The Blue Ox foreman approached me, his own clipboard ready. "Mrs. Carver, we're ready. All items are accounted for and being moved to the museum room." He paused. "Which one do you want us to secure first?" I looked at the beautiful, heavy cabinet, the secret it had held, the legacy it represented. "The cabinet," I said. "Put it back where it belongs." I followed them downstairs. I watched them place it against the far wall. The foreman closed the heavy, carved door. The brass latch clicked into place. It was a dry, solid, final sound, the last echo of the battle. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I truly appreciate you spending your time with me today. Let me know in the comments where you are listening from. I would love to hear your thoughts. Please subscribe to Grandma's Family Diary, like this video, and if you can, support us by hitting that hype button so this story can be heard by more people.